Welcome, beautiful people, to season 3, episode 5 of Jahmi Roc's Jottings. This seriously silly space for intentional musicology, sonic joy, and the kind of reggae and broader musical insight that'll keep your mind rocking and your thoughts swaying. I'm your host, Jahmi Roc, Kingston-born LA-based freedom singer, and today we're diving into one of the most personal stories ever shared on this mic. Major content warnings for this episode, y'all. I'm discussing triggering content. This is the story behind my song Last Time. How I survived domestic abuse, homelessness, mental health crises, becoming a mother, and how music, faith, and play helped me walk out of the fire without a scar. So let's talk about the making of Last Time. It was years in becoming. Before I take you into the story the song is about, I want to tell you how the song actually came to be. Because Last Time is not just one session in a studio, it is the final product of years of healing through music. When I first started processing this breakup creatively, I began writing and recording with James Kemp in Pasadena. We made several songs about what I had been through. None of them were ever released. I later revisited some of the songs, reworked a few of them, and actually released one, but eventually took it down. Some of those songs are still being refined and will be released later this year. So understand, Last Time does not come from a single inspired afternoon. It comes from years of returning to the studio, returning to the pain, returning to the page, and slowly unpacking what happened to me through song. The actual lyrics of Last Time began at a Rhythm Saturdays event I attended at the Dizzle Lab. The rhythm was one that Dale, my producer, had originally created back in 2015. I stepped up and laid out an idea through freestyle. It came from somewhere deep and real. After that session, I reviewed what I had freestyled, wrote the ideas out, and showed up to our first recording session, expecting to simply re-sing the freestyle as it was. Dale looked at me and said, "No, we have to give it a structure." So we sat together, we reworked the ideas, we shaped the story with intention, then I recorded. What happened next was one of my favorite parts of making this song, the harmonies. Dale voiced the harmonies, and I had a blast in that process. But Dale also pushed me in a way I will never forget. He told me not to simply sing the words, but to get connected to the story. He pushed me to emote, to go to the place the lyrics were born from. For a song rooted in that much pain, that directive meant a lot. In our second session, we went even deeper. We added ad-lib tracks, and Dale challenged me to take vocal risks, to stretch, to be vulnerable, to go somewhere unexpected. I had also consulted my friend Nathaniel Graves, who gave me thoughtful feedback on the song. I brought his ideas to Dale, and we went over the song again with fresh ears and fresh intention. Then came the mix session that changed everything. Dale completely revamped the beat itself, restructured it, elevated it, and that transformation created what you hear today on all streaming platforms. After all that work, the song sat and stewed for several months, and on March 6th, 2026, Last Time was finally released into the world. That is how long healing takes sometimes. That is how long art takes. Years of returning to the wound until you have shaped it into something that can set others free too. All right, so let's set the scene. This is what I survived. Before Last Time was a song, it was 6 months of hell that tried but failed to destroy me. During my pregnancy, I experienced domestic abuse from the man who is in fact my child's biological father. The multi-layered abuses began in March or April when he came to live with me in California and intensified when, after my family invited us to come live with them, we moved to Florida. This domestic abuse included verbal abuse and emotional mental abuse, physical intimidation, grand theft, cyber stalking, cyber bullying and impersonation, death threats, and harassment across California and Florida. I filed police reports, though in general, I do not support law enforcement in its racist core. But I filed those reports in both states because this was not just relationship drama, it was violence. He also emotionally and mentally abused my family. He threatened my family's dog multiple times at the beginning of our stay in my mom's house. Within our first week in Florida, he had triggered me to the point of SI, which, if you do not know what that stands for, I will not be naming it specifically on this podcast. Um, but look it up. But it was to that point. After I left him and returned, because basically we were in my mom's house, and then I went to the hospital. Um, and while I was in the hospital, my family kicked him out. Then we ended up staying in Airbnbs for a while. Um, and when I left him at one of those Airbnbs and returned home to my mom, he threatened us again, claiming he was down the street with his uncle who had a gun. Later, he went online and called me a GoFundMe whore, conveniently omitting that I had been financially responsible for both of us from the minute he came to live with me in California until the day I left him. This same man, my child sperm donor, who would later weaponize the internet against me, plastering intimate photos and videos of me, accusing me of diseases, and curating clips of my worst moments to frame me as out of control. That's the same man who did that. But out of this fire, last time was born. There were hospitals, there were holds, right? All of this as you know what I'm calling this fire that I went through. In Florida, I went to four hospitals for help with my mental health. I went to the first hospital twice, once after not sleeping for over 60 hours, and once after my ex spent the entire morning taunting and emotionally amusing me until I had to creep away and found a police officer who took me to the hospital again. I was abused and mistreated in two of those hospitals, once during a 5-day hold on a psychiatric ward I entered voluntarily, and once after a voluntary ER visit that turned into a 24-hour hold. At one point, my child's sperm donor intentionally left me to roam the streets with none of my personal belongings. I asked at least 10 strangers to call my family, and no one answered. Until I started hyperventilating in front of a supermarket and a stranger called an ambulance. Even then, the paramedics mentally and emotionally mistreated me before I was taken to the hospital, where I was held for another 5-day hold. During my 2 months in Florida, I was only under my family's roof for a total of about 3 weeks. I was financially responsible for securing shelter for myself and my ex until September 1, when his physical intimidation reached the absolute limit I was willing to tolerate. On September 23, I flew myself back to California. Back in LA, I experienced housing insecurity or homelessness. I was never, thankfully, on the street or sleeping in my car because of a lot of people helping me. But I had no home address. I had no apartment. Um, I had no way of getting funds. In terms of working for them, um, I still was unstable, right? So, I voluntarily checked myself into a psychiatric ward in Los Angeles where I stayed for 21 days to regain mental stability. I was able to eat and stay sheltered because of direct financial support from undergrad classmates, colleagues from my PhD program, LA friends, and in a smaller capacity, my Florida family. So sometimes it was hotels, sometimes the hostels, very few times a couch or a spare bed with friends or one of my family members. This is the backdrop to the first verse of last time. You were my first love and my only, but now you made my heart turn cold. We were about to start a family, then you turned, tried to take my soul. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was spiritual warfare. There was a lot going on. So let's move on to the next step. So there was a baby Zania, a diagnosis and clarity. After my daughter Zenia was born, my Fundly community enabled me to secure housing until January 2nd. I was deeply grateful and still am for every angel who shared the link, donated, and sent a direct sell to me. Even then, after she was born, I had to return to the ER and check into my fifth psych ward of 2020. So the intersection of pregnancy, postpartum, and cyclical mental illness crises, which runs in my family, um, um, all of that coupled with a new diagnosis finally made sense of so much. One of the symptoms that the diagnosis includes is like delusional thoughts of being persecuted. And I realized that I had projected some of those feelings onto my Florida family while simultaneously being constantly gaslit and triggered by my abuser, my child sperm donor. He had sent one manipulative guilt-tripping YouTube video um, which can only be described as an attempt of a narcissistic abuser to twist the story and remind me of the love I had given him once, since I had met him at 13, just 4 days before my 14th birthday. I refused to watch it, but I did share it with others so they could witness the pattern. This was the same physical and cyber abuser who plastered images and videos of me in lingerie across the internet, accused me of giving him herpes, called me a GoFundMe whore, successfully traumatized and bullied four of my former close friends out of my life. Well, thankfully, three of those four have come back into my life as of today. Grateful for that. Um, he curated videos of me to make me seem out of control. He imprisoned me in the bathroom of an Airbnb using physical intimidation and verbal lashes, all while broadcasting it to his cousin on FaceTime, adding devilish commentary like, "You see this nasty bitch? She got stains from her shirt from eating pizza last night." So when you hear me sing, "You have hurt me for the last time. You took my heart, took my mind. No more waiting like the last time. No more." It's not just words. It's not just a catchy phrase in a song. This is a declaration. Me choosing my life, my daughter, my sanity, and my future. Right? So let's talk a little bit more about fire, faith, and the metaphor that carried me. In one of my writings in a Facebook group that page rather that I created called Racquel and Xenia Bernard's 2020 survival story, um, I reflected on the word friend with Peter Tosh's wisdom. He said, "A friend can often be a fry end." Like FRYEND. In the end, they fry you and throw you into the fire. But here's what else I know. Three Hebrew persons were flung into the fire, and the Son of Man was also seen in the fire. They came out without a scar, not even their clothes smelled like smoke. Gold is purified by fire, and some seeds cannot germinate unless there is a fire. And if you ever knew the blessings that this fry end inspired, you would not bawl, you would only grow. That is the spiritual soil from which the bridge of last time grows. You got me in this moment, feeling true to myself and me only. The fire did not finish me, it refined me. So now music, coping skills, and procrastinating. Trademark Rocky Beat, you know? When you're healing from trauma, you must tap back into the activities that soothe you and bring you joy. For me, my most helpful coping skills are singing, dancing, painting, and writing. These are not just hobbies, they are medicine and survival tools. If you're doing your best to heal from life's stings, tap into the activities that bring you joy. Play. Playing is not something we grow out of because we have to become responsible adults. Even seniors facing grief receive handouts titled How to Return to Play. So, yes, procrastinate, my loves. Procrastinate all day if your soul needs it. In fact, check out my procrastinate station at Jahmi Roc on YouTube if you want to see how I turned that play into art and testimony. On the mornings when I felt down, I remember one morning in particular, I sat on a bench with Xenia. She was in my little like kangaroo pouch, those little baby carriers. I was breathing in the fresh air, soaking in the healing rays of sunshine, feeling the cool breeze around us. I was at Venice Beach, so I heard each wave crashing into the California shore. It felt like it was soothing the pain of those tumultuous 6 months. I'm deeply grateful to every angel who had our backs, those who donated, shared our funding, or simply prayed. I also began to appreciate my mom more, despite how strained our relationship had become during my cycling crises. No matter how much misplaced anger I flung at her, I know my mom is a prayer warrior. Some people tried to undermine our bond, hoping our relationship would mirror the brokenness they had with their own mothers. And so instead of throwing shade that morning, I prayed the universe sprinkle soul lifting stardust in their paths and revive their broken hearts. That is what it feels like when my mom says, I love you a lot. I always said I would have my first child at 30 because my mom turned 30 the year she had me. I did not predict the trauma, the pandemic, or the homelessness that would come with it, but divine promise says we never experience more than we can bear. I felt that morning like a change was on the horizon. You see it forming where the Pacific kisses the sky. That is the horizon last time is facing. This part is for you listening right now. You are worthy of love. I am grateful for your life. You are a champion. If you fear that no one would care if you weren't here, please know I might not know you, but I feel you and I see you. When I close my eyes, I see my spiritual siblings, especially the ones I have never met. I want you to survive. I need you to survive. If you are struggling, call 211. Call for help. Ask someone to pray for you. Ask for someone to send you good vibes. Speak up, tap in. You are not alone. If this story or last time resonates with you, go stream the song, share this episode, and subscribe to my channel so more survivors know they have a soundtrack and a sister in the struggle. This song is my goodbye to abuse, my farewell to manipulation, my go to hell that the lie that I am unworthy, to the lie that I am unworthy of safety and love. Some goodbyes do not come with tears, they come with clarity. This has been Jahmi Roc. Thank you for walking through the fire and into the music with me. Until next time, keep your mind rocking, your thoughts swaying, and as always, keep jamming.